What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest moguls completely loses control on live television? In just 30 seconds, a simple question turned into the most shocking meltdown in morning show history. Michael Strahan sat across from Tyler Perry in the Good Morning America studio that morning, ready for what should have been a straightforward interview about Perry's latest film project. The cameras were rolling, the audience was settled, and everything seemed perfectly normal. But what happened next would leave everyone in that studio completely speechless. Strahan started with a friendly smile, welcoming Perry to the show. "Tyler, thanks so much for being here today. We're excited to talk about your new movie." Perry nodded, but there was something off about his energy. Something tense. "Yeah, well, let's get to it then." Strahan, as ever the professional, maintained his warm demeanor. "Absolutely. So this film marks your 20th feature as a director. That's an incredible milestone. What does that mean to you?" Perry shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. "What does it mean? Michael, do you even watch my movies?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Strahan's smile didn't waver. "Of course. I think what you've built is remarkable. Your audience is incredibly loyal." "Loyal," Perry repeated, his tone sharp. "That's what you're going with? Loyal?" Strahan tried to steer things back. "I mean it as a compliment. You've created something special. Your fans show up for everything you do." Perry leaned forward, his expression hardening. "You know what I hear when you say that? I hear you saying my fans are loyal, like they don't have taste. Like they just show up because they don't know any better." "That's not what I said at all," Strahan replied calmly. "I was celebrating your connection with your audience." Right, Perry said, waving his hand dismissively. "The same audience that Hollywood likes to pretend doesn't exist until they want our money." Strahan nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually a really important point. Do you think the industry has changed in how it views diverse storytelling?" Perry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Are you serious right now? You're really going to sit there and ask me that?" "I'm asking because I think your perspective matters," Strahan said, his voice still even and respectful. "My perspective," Perry muttered. "Michael, let me ask you something. How much did they pay you to do this interview?" Strahan paused, clearly taken aback. "I'm sorry? You heard me. How much are you getting paid to sit here and patronize me on national television?" "Tyler, I'm not patronizing you. I'm trying to have a conversation about your work." Perry stood up suddenly, his microphone cord pulling taut. "My work. You want to talk about my work? Fine. Let's talk about how I built an entire studio from nothing while people like you were playing football and getting handed opportunities." The studio went quiet. Strahan remained seated, his expression steady but serious. "Tyler, I think maybe we should take a breath here." "Don't tell me to take a breath," Perry snapped. "You don't get to tell me what to do. You know what your problem is, Michael. You're a puppet. You sit here every morning with your little coffee cup and your scripted questions. Is Silent you think you're a journalist?" Strahan's voice remained calm. "I respect that you're upset, but I don't think this is fair." "Fair?" Perry's voice rose. "You want to talk about fair? Nothing about this industry is fair. And you sitting there in your expensive suit, acting like you understand struggle, that's not fair either." "I never claimed to understand your specific journey," Strahan said carefully, "but I do know something about working hard to get where I am." Perry pointed at him. "Football. You played a game, Michael. A game. I built an empire." "And I've acknowledged that," Strahan replied, "multiple times in this conversation." "No, you've patronized me," Perry shot back. "There's a difference. You think throwing out words like loyal and remarkable makes up for the fact that you and everyone else in this building looks down on what I do." Strahan shook his head. "That's not true. I have genuine respect for what you've accomplished." "Respect," Perry scoffed. "If you respected me, you wouldn't have asked that question about my fans. Like there's some curiosity. Like they're not real people with real taste." I think you're misinterpreting what I said. I'm not misinterpreting anything, Perry insisted. I've been in this business long enough to know a backhanded compliment when I hear one. Strahan leaned forward slightly. Tyler, I promise you, that was not my intention. If it came across that way, I apologize. Of course you apologize, Perry said bitterly. That's what you people do. You say something slick, and then you apologize when you get called out. You people? Strahan repeated quietly. Perry seemed to realize what he'd said, but he didn't back down. Yeah, you people. The ones who get put in these positions to make everyone comfortable, to smile and nod and never ask the real questions. What real questions would you like me to ask? Strahan's tone remained professional, despite the escalating tension. How about asking why my movies get dismissed by critics, while other directors get praised for doing the exact same thing? How about asking why I have to fund my own projects? Because the studios won't take a chance on black stories. Strahan nodded. Those are valid questions, and I'm happy to discuss them if you want to sit back down. I don't want to sit down, Perry said. I'm tired of sitting down. I'm tired of playing nice. I'm tired of coming on shows like this and pretending everything is fine when it's not. I understand that frustration, Strahan said. But taking it out on me doesn't solve anything. Perry's eyes flashed. Don't try to therapize me, Michael. You're not qualified. I'm not trying to therapize anyone. I'm trying to have a respectful conversation. Respect, Perry repeated again. You keep using that word. But you know what? I don't think you know what it means. You know what respect looks like? Respect looks like doing your homework before I come on your show. Respect looks like asking questions that matter instead of this surface-level garbage. Strahan's patience was evident in his measured response. I did do my homework. I've seen your films. I've read about your journey. And I think what you've done is inspiring. Inspiring? Perry said mockingly. Another buzzword. You got a whole list of those, don't you? Tyler, what do you want from this conversation? I want you to be real. Perry's voice echoed through the studio. Just once, I want someone to be real with me instead of hiding behind this morning show fakeness. I am being real, Strahan said firmly. I'm being as honest and respectful as I know how to be. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what else to offer. Perry laughed harshly. Of course you don't, because you've never had to fight for anything. Everything was just handed to you. That's not true, and you know it, Strahan said, his voice taking on a slight edge for the first time. I worked incredibly hard to get where I am. Playing a game, Perry repeated. While some of us were out here actually creating things, actually building something that matters. Both can matter, Strahan countered. This doesn't have to be a competition. Everything is a competition, Perry said. That's the reality you don't seem to understand. Every day I have to compete against people's low expectations. Every day I have to prove that I deserve to be in the room. And then I come on shows like this and get treated like a charity case. Nobody is treating you like a charity case. Really? Then why did your producer call my people 3 times begging me to come on? Why was it so important that I be here today? Strahan remained composed. Because our viewers want to hear from you. Because you're newsworthy. Because you matter. I matter, Perry said slowly. But my work doesn't, right? And that's what you really think. I never said that. In fact, I've said the opposite several times now. Perry grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. You know what, Michael? I don't have time for this. I don't have time to sit here and be disrespected. Tyler, please, Strahan said, standing now. I don't think walking out is the answer. I don't care what you think, Perry said coldly. You want to know what I think? I think you're a sellout. I think you sold out a long time ago, and now you just do whatever the network tells you to do. The words hung heavy in the studio. Strahan took a deep breath before responding. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I stand by my integrity and my work. Your integrity, Perry said with a bitter smile. That's rich. And you wouldn't know integrity if it hit you in the face. That's enough, Strahan said, his voice still controlled, but firm. You can disagree with me. You can be upset. But I won't let you attack my character on my own show. Your show, Perry echoed. It's not your show, Michael. It's their show. You're just the face they put on it. And when they're done with you, they'll replace you with someone else who's willing to smile and read the teleprompter. Strahan stood tall, his composure remarkable, given the circumstances. I'm proud of the work I do here. I'm proud of the conversations I have. And I'm sorry this one didn't go the way either of us hoped. Perry turned toward the exit. You should be sorry. You wasted my time. Tyler, wait, Strahan called out. We can start over. We can have the conversation you want to have. Perry stopped, but didn't turn around. No, we can't, because you're not capable of having that conversation. You're too busy protecting your image and keeping your bosses happy. That's not fair. Perry finally turned back, his eyes blazing. Life's not fair, Michael. You should know that by now. Or did they forget to teach you that in football camp? I'm trying to extend an olive branch here. I don't want your olive branch, Perry said. I don't want your fake apologies or your manufactured concern. I want you to admit that you look down on what I do. I want you to admit that you think you're better than me. I don't think I'm better than you, Strahan said clearly. I think we're different people with different talents and different paths. But there's no hierarchy in that. Perry stared at him for a long moment. You really believe that, don't you? You really think you can just say the right words and make everything okay? I believe in having honest conversations, even difficult ones. This isn't a conversation, Perry said. This is a performance, and I'm done performing for you. He started walking toward the exit again. Strahan called out one more time. Tyler, our audience deserves better than this. Perry stopped in his tracks and turned around slowly. Our audience? There is no our audience, Michael. There's your audience, and there's my audience. And my audience knows exactly who I am and what I stand for. They don't need you to validate me. I wasn't trying to validate you. Then what were you trying to do? Perry demanded. What was the point of any of this? I was trying to celebrate your work, to give you a platform to talk about what you've built. Perry shook his head. A platform. Like, I need you to give me a platform. I built my own platform, Michael. While you were catching footballs, I was building something real. Something that lasts. I'm not your enemy, Strahan said quietly. Maybe not, Perry replied. But you're not my friend either. You're just another person in this industry who pretends to care while secretly hoping I'll fail. That's absolutely not true. Prove it, Perry challenged. Right now. Prove that you actually care about what I do. Strahan met his gaze steadily. I don't have to prove anything to you. My respect for your work stands on its own. Perry laughed. There it is. That's the real Michael Strahan. The guy who doesn't have to prove anything because he's already got everything handed to him. That's a gross mischaracterization of my life, and you know it. Do I? Perry asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty accurate. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Strahan remained standing near his chair, his posture professional despite the personal attacks. I think it's clear this interview isn't going to be productive. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. How generous, Perry said sarcastically. The great Michael Strahan gives me permission to leave. That's not what I meant. I know exactly what you meant, Perry said. You meant that you're done dealing with me. That I'm too difficult, too angry, too real for your sanitized morning show. Strahan sighed. I meant that if you're this unhappy being here, then maybe it's best if we end this now before either of us says something we truly regret. I don't regret anything I've said, Perry stated firmly. Then I guess we're done here. Perry nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess we are. He looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching this, remember that not everyone in this industry is what they seem. Some people talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, they're just playing a part. "Tyler," Strahan said warningly, but Perry was already walking toward the exit, pulling off his microphone as he went. He tossed it onto a nearby table without looking back, the small thud echoing through the silent studio. Strahan stood there for a moment, watching him go. Then he turned to face the camera, his expression composed but somber. "We'll be right back after this break." And just like that, one of the most explosive interviews in morning television history came to a stunning end. Tyler Perry disappeared through the studio doors, leaving Michael Strahan standing alone on set, the weight of what had just happened settling over everyone present. The cameras cut away, but the damage was done. In just a few short minutes, a routine promotional interview had exploded into a full-blown confrontation that nobody saw coming. Strahan had maintained his professionalism throughout, asking thoughtful questions and trying repeatedly to de-escalate the situation. But Perry's anger had been like a runaway train, impossible to stop once it started rolling. What should have been a celebration of Perry's achievements turned into a public display of frustration and accusation. Strahan had tried every approach, offering apologies, extending olive branches, and attempting to redirect the conversation. None of it worked. Perry was determined to make his point, regardless of how inappropriate the venue or how unfair his accusations. Through it all, Strahan never raised his voice, never stooped to personal attacks, never abandoned his role as a professional host trying to navigate an impossible situation. His composure under fire was remarkable, especially given the severity of Perry's accusations and insults. The studio audience sat in shocked silence, unsure how to react. The crew behind the cameras watched helplessly as the interview spiraled completely out of control. And viewers at home witnessed something they'd never seen before on morning television. A guest so consumed by his own grievances that he couldn't see the genuine respect being offered to him. Perry's exit was as dramatic as his outburst. No handshake, no acknowledgement of the crew. Just an angry departure that left everyone wondering what had just happened. The microphone toss was the final punctuation mark on an interview that had gone completely off the rails. Strahan's final words to the camera showed the true measure of his character. Despite being personally attacked, despite having his integrity questioned, despite being called a sellout and a puppet, he simply moved forward. He didn't lash out, didn't defend himself extensively, didn't try to get the last word. He just did his job. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a host trying desperately to have a respectful conversation, offering multiple opportunities for reset and reconciliation. On the other, a guest who arrived with a chip on his shoulder and refused every attempt at genuine dialogue. Strahan represented professionalism and grace under pressure. Perry represented unchecked ego and misdirected anger. Every question Strahan asked was reasonable. Every response was measured. Every attempt to salvage the interview was genuine. But none of it mattered to Perry, who seemed determined to be offended, regardless of what was said. He took compliments as insults, twisted words to fit his narrative, and ultimately revealed more about his own insecurities than about any real slight from Strahan. The accusation that Strahan had never worked hard was particularly galling. Anyone who knows Strahan's story knows the dedication and sacrifice required to excel at the highest level of professional sports, and then successfully transition to broadcasting. But Perry, lost in his own grievances, couldn't see past his own narrative of struggle and disrespect. Strahan's offer to start over was a genuine attempt to give Perry what he claimed to want, a real conversation. But Perry rejected it, proving that he wasn't actually interested in dialogue. He was interested in making a scene, in proving a point, in being the victim of disrespect that existed more in his mind than in reality. The moment Perry accused Strahan of being a sellout crossed a line. These weren't two strangers having a disagreement. They were both successful black men in entertainment, of both navigating an industry with its own challenges and complexities. For Perry to attack Strahan's integrity so viciously revealed a profound lack of self-awareness and basic decency. Strahan's restraint when facing those accusations was admirable. A lesser person might have fired back, might have pointed out Perry's own contradictions and hypocrisy. But Strahan took the high road, defending his character without descending to Perry's level. That choice spoke volumes about who he is as a person. The final exchange, where Perry addressed the camera directly, was perhaps the most telling moment. Even in his exit, he couldn't resist taking one more shot, one more attempt to paint himself as the righteous truth-teller exposing phonies. It was a transparent attempt to control the narrative, to make his tantrum seem justified. But anyone watching could see through it. Strahan's simple, "We'll be right back after this break," was the perfect response. No dramatics, no counter-accusations, just a professional host doing his job despite extraordinary circumstances. In those 7 words, he demonstrated more class than Perry had shown in the entire interview. The silence that followed Perry's exit was deafening. It was the sound of everyone in that studio processing what they'd just witnessed. A meltdown, an implosion, a complete failure of basic professionalism and human decency. And through it all, one man had remained steady, patient, and professional. That man was Michael Strahan. Looking back at the interview from start to finish, it's hard to find a single moment where Strahan did anything wrong. His questions were fair. His tone was respectful. And his attempts to redirect were genuine. He gave Perry every possible opportunity to have the conversation he claimed to want. But Perry was never interested in a conversation. He was interested in a confrontation. The tragedy is that Perry could have used that platform to discuss real issues in the industry. He could have had a meaningful dialogue about representation, about the dismissal of black stories by mainstream critics, about the challenges of being a black creator in Hollywood. Strahan had offered him that opportunity multiple times, but Perry was too consumed by perceived slights to have that conversation. Instead, what viewers witnessed was a successful man unable to handle basic questions without erupting into personal attacks. They saw someone so wrapped up in their own narrative of persecution that they couldn't recognize genuine respect when it was offered. They saw entitlement masquerading as righteous anger, and they saw Michael Strahan, a man who had every reason to fight back, to defend himself aggressively, to match Perry's energy. But he didn't, because he understood something Perry clearly didn't, that true strength is shown in restraint, that real professionalism means rising above, that the best response to someone acting badly is to refuse to join them in the mud. The interview ended with Perry walking out and Strahan standing tall. One man left in anger and shame, whether he recognized it or not. The other remained, ready to continue his show and serve his audience. In that final image, everything you needed to know about both men was perfectly clear. What happens when a Hollywood mogul loses control on live television? You get a masterclass in contrasts. Grace versus grievance. Professionalism versus pettiness. Respect versus resentment. And in this case, the winner was obvious to anyone paying attention. It wasn't the person who yelled the loudest or who got the last word. It was the person who never lost sight of what mattered, treating others with dignity even when they refused to return the favor. Michael Strahan walked into that interview, ready to celebrate Tyler Perry's achievements. Tyler Perry walked in ready for a fight. And when someone is determined to be offended, when they're committed to seeing disrespect where none exists, there's nothing anyone can do to change their mind. Strahan learned that lesson in real time, in front of millions of viewers, and he handled it with a level of grace that few could match.